Hey, Dr. Semien, can I talk to you real quick?
Hey, Julie, how you doing? Of course you can.
I'm good. Scarlet Letter, written by Nathaniel Hawthorne.
Yeah, it's actually one of my favorite books.
Okay, so you know the story behind it. It's about a woman named Hester Prynne who has a child after engaging in an adulterous affair. As punishment, Prynne was made to publicly wear a Scarlet Letter A to represent her adultery.
Yes.
But what's so interesting about this novel is that Hawthorne focuses more on the aftermath of the affair rather than the affair itself. Hawthorne explores the themes of judgment, guilt, isolation, and free will. But what's so intriguing is that whenever you're reading it, you initially don't understand the importance of these themes. And the themes are affecting multiple characters in the book at the same time, just internally, through internal judgment, internal guilt, internal isolation, and they're affecting multiple characters in the book at the same time. So.
Yeah, and it's all based on this, it's kind of like, I'm kind of starting to get what you're talking about, I think. If you're talking about the fact that, this is criminology though, and so I'm not exactly getting your point. Can you, what's your connection?
Okay, so think about it. Hester Prynne, this sinful woman who made a horrible mistake in society's standards.
Okay.
She served her time and she was able to forgive herself, yet society continued to see her as a sinner, and they continue to shame her. I mean, does this sound familiar?
Yeah, it kind of does. It sounds like the people who come out of jails and prisons and the people that we call returning citizens.
Exactly. That's the point. The Scarlet Letter was such a taboo subject during its time period, just as prison reentry is a taboo subject now. Being a convicted felon is the current Scarlet Letter, just instead of an A for an adultery, it's an F for felon. The themes that Hawthorne explores in the Scarlet Letter are almost identical to those that we see in modern day prison reentry. Judgment from society, along with self-judgment, guilt of the convicted, isolation from society after being contained for X amount of years, and the loss of free will, whether that be with voting rights, trying to get a job, applying for financial aid, or applying for a loan. All of these, if not completely, are partially hindered because of one conviction.
Wow, you know what, that's a pretty accurate comparison. I'm actually sitting here thinking, you got me thinking a little bit, because mass incarceration seems to be threatening our democracy.
Mm-hmm.
And some of my thoughts are kind of like, what would happen if we focused on helping people come out of jails and prisons instead of focusing on the act that got them arrested or incarcerated in the first place.
Okay.
Right? And then another one, kind of going along with what Nathaniel Hawthorne said or wrote about, was basically what happens if we focus on the aftermath of the conviction instead of, looking at people's futures and their lives after jails and prisons, mm-hmm. as opposed to what happened to get to the initial conviction in itself, right? Is that kind of along the lines of what you're thinking?
Yes, exactly. I'm not sure how many people we could influence, but I'm sure if we were able to give exact numbers and exact percentages, we could really hit home with people and connect.
I see. So basically you came to me for some numbers, right?
Maybe.
Yeah, all right. So I got some numbers for you.
Okay.
All right. So 1 in 99, the Scarlet Letter F that you're talking about, mm-hmm. affects 1 in 99 in our country. You talk about the people who basically have 1 in 99 people have felony records.
Wow.
So 1 in 99 people have the Scarlet Letter F, right? And then you also talk about the fact that 2.3 million people are locked up in our prisons, and you're not even talking about jails, parole, and probation.
That's right.
So we estimate about 5 million people are actually in the system itself, which is really crazy if you
mm-hmm.
think about it. And then there's no numbers like this one, like the U.S. actually has 5% of the world's population, and at the same time, it has 25% of the world's incarcerated population.
You're joking.
No, not at all. It's freaking crazy, right?
That's insane.
And then we also know that 1 out of 3 people, out of 3 years, that 67% of the people who are coming out actually get locked back up again, and often just for minor infractions. Are these the kind of numbers you're talking about?
Yeah, but I know there's so many more that we can give to people.
Oh, there's always so much more. Think about it. All you got to do is hit the books, right? The research, right?
That's true.
And so you start doing that, and just like the class we had corrections, where
mm-hmm.
we looked at The New Jim Crow by Michelle Alexander. That's been talking about mass incarceration and the damage it's been doing to our country.
I remember that book.
I'm glad you remember that book. You better remember that book. And then I also remember Jeremy Travis and David Pager and Bruce Western and Joan Peter Celia mm-hmm. and others are basically putting in motion that the mark of a criminal record basically has this whole, it has an impact on jobs and the fact that people can't live anywhere. and the fact that there's all these social barriers and obstacles that people have to face and encounter, and it's just kind of like crazy.
But I mean, do you like the Scarlet Letter idea?
I kind of do like the Scarlet Letter idea, and you know why I like the Scarlet Letter idea? It's because it's really simple, and I think people can relate to it, and I think they can easily understand it, and just like the other information that we had up there, I think it's a brilliant idea, and I like the fact that it's yours.
Oh, thank you, Dr. Semien. I really appreciate that, but I do want to bother you with another problem that I have.
Sorry, you never bother me.
Okay, so you know how society is constantly telling us that crime rates have been decreasing since the 90s?
I know, right?
Well, as true as that is, one fact that they haven't been telling us is that incarceration rates for nonviolent drug offenders have been skyrocketing.
Yeah.
So crime rates are decreasing, yet the number of people being locked up is increasing.
Crazy.
Does that make any sense?
Not at all. It's nuts.
I mean, wouldn't these people be much better off in drug treatment facilities rather than being in prison for their mental health illness? I mean, I guess if human dignity doesn't mean anything to you, maybe the fact that it costs a lot less than the $30,000 per inmate that we're spending annually.
I like where you're going, Julie, because you got to go to the money. You got to follow the money. Now, 2.3 million people coming out of prison times 30,000 per inmate per year. I mean, like, we can add that up. We can look at that. I mean, how much do you think that would actually equal?
I'm not a math major. I'm not good at math, but I know it's more than 2.3 million.
Yeah, it's a little bit more than 2.3 million.
Okay, let's say around 6 billion. That's a big number.
It is a big number, but I think it's still under it. I think we need to go to the board.
You think?
I think so, yeah. Let's
Okay.
go to the board. So 2.3 million inmates, right?
Okay.
Times 30,000 per inmate per year, right? I mean, it's got to come to about 20 million, 20 billion. Whoa.
Oh.
What?
We were just a tad off.
Hello. And that's like
Okay.
every year. That's crazy. It explains a lot about why the system might be so hard to change. Somebody's profiting off of that, and I don't think it's the inmates.
I may be wrong, but wouldn't that be as if a person was living off of $1 million a year consecutively for 69,000 years?
Oh my God. Yeah, that's crazy. And we're not even talking about jails.
That's so wrong.
Yeah.
Our society seems to be an unforgiving one that won't give these people a break once they're released. If we can help those people who are released and help them transition back into society, then they can become productive citizens. You know, citizens who pay taxes, who pay the taxes to house the other inmates.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't think I want to pay those taxes.
I don't, and I don't even pay taxes yet.
You don't even, oh wow, hey, look at you. I got to pay them, April? Wow. So I'm thinking that this isn't exactly how things are working right now, and that what usually happens right now is that we have people who do the crime and do their time, and then I call that the first sentencing, because what happens is then they get out, and we basically have them go through these lifelong lasting consequences, which I call the second sentence, because we really don't give them a break in terms of finding housing and having a place to live, or having a job, or a place, like voting rights, or any other social obstacles or barriers or stigma that they have to face, like the Scarlet Letter F, right? And so you're just like, what do you do with the situation? And it kind of leads me to thinking about a couple of different values. Like, there's one story I can tell you, and it's when I was a student, right? And so when I was a student at UNC Graduate School in Chapel Hill.
Go Tar Heels.
Yeah, go Tar Heels for sure. I was sitting there I was volunteering at a minimum security prison with the superintendent warden named Mike Tum, and he was just like, look, you got to concentrate on the cream of the crop. And I was like, well, what does that mean, right?
That's strange.
I know. And then he said, well, the people that are in prison already who are trying to focus on making their lives better. Like, they're in drug treatment, they're in education classes, they're doing all these other classes that were actually improving their lives while they're inside. And his whole thing was, look, if they're motivated like that while they're inside, that if we set up structures and things for them when they came outside, they'd actually be just as motivated and would probably become productive tax-paying citizens, right? And so, that's one kind of value and one approach, right? But the other one that really bugs me, is that there's people that seem to be profiting, making money out of this misery and out of the situation. And, my thing is, when you value profits over people, it just kind of irks me, you know what I'm saying? And I'm thinking about these private prisons who go into these low-income neighborhoods, like the kind of neighborhood I was from, right?
Oakland, got that.
And so you basically have these, people coming in, and they start scouring for third grade reading scores.
Wait, really?
Yeah, really. And if they're like low enough, then they're like, ka-ching, we can build a prison right here.
Wow.
Crazy, right? Me, I go into a low-income neighborhood like that, and there's poor reading grade scores, and I'm thinking, wow, build something, right? But I'm thinking build a mentor program. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like this whole value profits over people thing, it's crazy. It's kind of like they were trying to take the high school, the prison pipeline, and start it with third graders. I don't really like it. What do you think about it? You think that's the right thing to do?
I mean, I guess business-wise, that's pretty strategic. But I mean, morally, no, it's out of the question. That's completely wrong. But I mean, people do it.
I'm gonna watch you. Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, all right. I'm just saying. But you know, I'm gonna go ahead and talk about
Probably language.
Change and how we need to talk about change. We need to start with language. Yeah, I think so. We need to look at the fact that when you have, who wants to be known as an X, right?
Yeah.
And you have a number of years in which you're going to be an X, you know? I don't want to be known as an ex-husband. Do you want to be known as an ex-girlfriend?
No, not really.
Do you want to be known as an ex-employee? You know? I'm just saying, we got to look at things and really put them in perspective. If we're using the words like ex-con and ex-offender, we really need to rethink what we're doing. And we need to kind of go back and look at the human dignity of each of these people that are coming out, that have served their time. And we need to start calling them like people with criminal records, or formerly incarcerated, or returning citizens.
You know, I completely agree with you, Dr. S. Language is the core of communication, and communication is the key to connecting with and understanding others. I believe by slapping on these labels and titles, we are unknowingly acknowledging a distinction between ourselves and from whom we are talking about. But who are we to judge one another? We all make mistakes, just most of us don't get caught for them.
Right.
So let me give you an example, and you guys. How many of you have ever taken a prescription pain pill that wasn't prescribed to you? Maybe you're an athlete and your back was hurting, so you borrowed a Loratab from your mom or your friend. Maybe it was finals week and you needed a few extra hours of studying, so you bought or you sold an Adderall or a Vyvanse. Well, did you know that under Alabama's drug possession laws, mere possession of just one of these medications unlawfully is considered a Class C felony?
A Class C felony?
Yeah, a felony.
That would apply to like most of my students.
That would apply to like 90% of the whole college population.
That's crazy. So this mass incarceration of non-violent drug offenders is really having a major impact in our society. It's really destroying the lives of men and women and impacting our families. This just sounds like something we actually need to do something about. Like we actually need to address this problem.
So with convicted felons, how can we get people to focus on the future potential rather than holding on to this stigma that all criminals are bad? Because, I mean, if you look at the numbers, 97% of all convicted felons never even went to trial. They settled for plea bargains, either because they didn't have enough money to try their case in court, or they just had a really bad lawyer. So would you rather shun someone who has the potential to benefit society, or encourage that said person?
Well, you know me, I'd rather encourage the said person, right? I mean, you know, I think that everyone has human dignity and everyone has worth, and we need to protect that. No one can take that away. And I think that everyone is valuable and that life is sacred.
So I think we should inform people that your past does not define who you are tomorrow. Our civil society is not always civil, nor is it forgiving, just as Hester Prynne's Puritan society in the Scarlet Letter, which is why we need to start with society itself and break this stereotype of criminals. They're not all bad, and they do deserve a second chance. That's why I'm wearing this Scarlet Letter F, to show that there is no difference between me and a convicted felon. We all have the ability to commit a crime. Most of us unknowingly do with the Loratab and the Vyvanse. So who are we to say that someone doesn't deserve a second chance?
Yeah, and don't get me wrong. I mean, I think that that everyone has a chance to change, right? But not everybody wants to change, and so we have to be very careful about who's being seen in our society. And let me think about this for a minute.
Well, I'm wondering what we can start from this. I mean,
what can we start? You know what? What I'm thinking about is the fact that we actually need to raise some public awareness.
That's true.
I think we probably need to start with the students, because, you know, every time we have social change and social movements, they're always led by students.
So it's time that we take a stand to inform people and show them the struggle that this group faces. So will you join me in wearing a Scarlet Letter F? to stand in solidarity, for those who are constantly shamed long after they've done their time, those who cannot get a job because of their conviction, those who have lost all their family members because of that conviction. Are you willing to understand their self-judgment, their guilt, their internal isolation, and their not so free will?
You know, Julie, I'm willing to understand. I'm willing to step up. And just like Hester Prynne in the Scarlet Letter, I'm willing to wear my letter F with pride. And I think, actually, that, if we talk to other students, that they'll probably want to do it. And that social media thing that y'all do, I think that, we could probably start a movement.
Old man.
I know, right?
Continue.
But I think we could probably start a movement, and actually, there's a perfect time for it, because the second week in April last year was declared National Reentry Week.
Oh, I remember that. We went last year.
We did. We went to the Civic Center, and we had a reentry simulation where we were trying to inform people, judges and lawyers and everybody else and students, like what it was like to be coming out of jails and prisons and what that was like.
I remember that.
Right? And we had Attorney General
Loretta Lynch,
right? Thank
you.
You
Came.
know how I am about that.
Pretty big deal.
Yeah, right. And so she came in, and I think that it was important to basically understand that that is a perfect time. So when the second week in April comes up and it's National Reentry Week again, then we can actually have people build with the social media movement, and we can actually have them wear the Scarlet Letter F, and we can visibly wear the mark of a criminal record.